Так, что там, запустилась, да, трансляция наша? Ну что, хочу сказать, всем привет еще раз. Я как еще раз, в очередной раз, всем привет. Будем сегодня смотреть, я надеюсь, это не замена BlizzCon, но это будет просто как стрим, показ новиночек. Все, что выйдет в Shadowlands, все, что нам не рассказали датамайнеры, все, что нам не показали альфа-тестеры, надеюсь, здесь расскажут. А кто, например, про PvP сеты, кстати, которые были, ну, условно, там на личе, и покупались они за баджики. Ну, не за баджики, они типа за честь покупались, за честь и за гладпоинты. Не помню, как они назывались. Ну, нет, завоевания они и назывались, но как-то... Я тогда на пиратке играл, и, в общем, как-то это глад... Я не PvP шел, как вы можете понять. Вот, в общем, вот эти сеты, они были на видосе у Орка, по-моему. У Орка подкастера, он когда... Не Орка, у Наура. У Наура был. Он когда разбирал какой-то из классов, он зашел в что-то типа поплота местного, и там стоял торговец PvP-сетами, да. В общем, вот такие вот мелочи. Посмотрим. Хорошо, классы все и все изменения классов, которые были которые, точнее, сейчас на альфе и, возможно, будут тоже в будущем. Их хорошо разобрал Тукер из Экзорсусов. Собственно, на канале Экзорсусов можно посмотреть любой класс. Очень крутую работу проделал чувак. И прям достойное уважение. Наур просмотрел более казуально, а Орк давал более такую какую-то лайтово-стримерскую инфу. Просто, то есть, можно было посмотреть, почилить туда. Вот. Нерв рогу магии. Ремув друид. Кого ремув друид? Я тебя ремувну. Вот, ремув void form пишет чел. Вот это, кстати, да. Тут я соглашусь, потому что ПП-присты себя очень чувствуют ущемленно в этом плане. Ну, то есть, у тебя нет бурста. Если убрать все азеритовые трейты, призраков, фор, все что угодно, у приста нет бурста. Это смехатура, но так и есть. И ты получаешь... Ты не то чтобы получаешь супер урон в форме, ты просто получаешь урон, ты просто дамажишь. А когда у тебя нет формы, ты просто сосешь огромный хрен. Это, конечно, не очень хорошо, если уж честно. Классик ТБК, please. Ну, кстати, да, если анонсируют Burning Crusade Classic, это будет прям вышка-пушка взрыв. Я прям с радостью посмотрел бы на это дело. Я вот думаю, надо было, наверное, настроить захват экрана, но как-то у меня вот не получилось. У меня почему-то черный экран был, хотя хром он определяет нормально. Наверное, нужно было открыть-закрыть его или что-нибудь в таком духе, но получилось так, как получилось. Так что заранее приношу свои извинения. Вот. Ну, судя по чату, все за баф Дестралокс. Кого? Нет, это перебор. Перебор. Бафать варлоков? Нет. Давайте. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Shadowlands live stream. I'm John Haidt, executive producer for World of Warcraft.
Угу.
We have a lot to tell you about today, but first, I want to start by saying thank you to our amazing community.
Да, amazing.
Like many of you, our regular routines have been turned upside down since we quarantined in March. We miss seeing our friends, the daily greetings and face-to-face conversations.
Я говорю, что с марта не проводили никаких открытых мероприятий в таком духе. Соскучились по всем.
Windows into each other's homes. When we meet this way, we often talk about how COVID-19 and world events are affecting our team and our families. And one of the hardest parts is dealing with a feeling of helplessness. Initially, we struggled with maintaining a sense of purpose. But ultimately, we draw inspiration from all of you. In a situation where it's easy to feel isolated, our purpose is to help
Сейчас
bring
я не
people
буду это
together.
переводить, потому что сейчас он читает на самом деле
WoW
достаточно
is truly a unique and magical
обычные
place
слова про
where
уникальное
people can
комьюнити,
maintain
про
the bonds
борьбу
of
с
friendship
ковидом,
across physical
про то, что
distance
типа у
by
них это
joining
благодаря нам.
forces to take on epic challenges or just hang out and talk. In WoW, the journey together is the real reward.
Journey
Getting an
Together.
awesome
Вот,
loot upgrade, finally downing a mythic raid boss, defeating the enemy team in the last moments of a battle.
это мне
All
очень
these
нравится.
experiences are memorable because we have each other to share them with. You've rekindled old friendships, made new ones, and gathered in Azeroth to honor fallen comrades. Seeing you all connect in this way has helped us carry on.
Хорошо, да, мы все зайдем в
WoW
Warcraft.
is also a place
Увидимся.
where you can just do your own thing, knowing that you share a common bond with millions of others who are exploring the world with you and who'll be there anytime you want to join up for an adventure or two. Like many of you, we're eager to embark on a new adventure together. You have our commitment. We will be releasing Shadowlands this fall, even if we end up shipping it from our homes.
Shadowlands
So again,
осенью,
on
значит, скорее
behalf
всего, это
of the
будет конец
entire WoW
ноября.
team, thank you.
Блин, я прослушал когда.
While this stream is about Shadowlands, before I get to that, I want to remind everyone what's happening in WoW Classic. Later this month, on July 28th, WoW Classic will recreate one of the most talked about events in the game's history, the Encourage War.
А 21-го
Players on every
немножко
realm
отступление,
across
да,
the
несмотря на
world
то,
will
что
gather
тема
resources in a
фильма
race to
это
be the
Shadowlands.
first to acquire the scepter of the
Наш продюсер, экзекьют-продюсер решил немножко отойти от этой темы и сказать, что 21 июля выходит Анкераж на серверах.
denizens of this ancient and deadly temple. I'm looking forward to welcoming all of our new
понятно,
Scarab
была про
Lords.
Ancient Deadly Temple и все остальное, да, это как бы,
Now, check this
ничто не
out.
ново.
I just received our Shadowlands Collector's Edition.
Shadowlands Collector Edition из коробки.
You can see on the spine of the box, looks like all the Collector's Editions you've seen before, except we have these full color Covenant emblems on the side. So it'll look great on the shelf with the other Collector's Editions. One of the really cool things about this box
Не
is the
вижу, что
front
это cool
cover.
things.
It's literally exploding with color. This recreates the moment when Sylvanas broke the sky above
да, вход
Icecrown
Shadowlands
Citadel.
из CLK, это мы видели на боковой части эмблемы ковенантов.
Inside,
внутри что?
you have
внутри.
the Epic Edition,
Epic Edition,
which includes the Ensorcelled Everworm mount, an Anima Wormling pet, a bunch of digital goodies, and 30 days of game time.
игрового времени,
Also
игрушка.
fine, and this is something we know you've all asked for, so we did one just for Shadowlands, but here's the art book.
Артбук.
Beautiful four-color
артбук, кстати, может, не такое плохое приобретение на самом
on
деле.
every page. I'm sorry, full color art on every page, but has all the concept art and a lot of great imagery that are unique to Shadowlands. And so you can also celebrate Shadowlands at your desk or home office. We have Shadowlands mouse pad. Matches the background behind me.
Я зашел на стрим по новостям про Warcraft или на телемагазин.
Is we actually have a collector's pin collection. This contains a pin for each of the covenants: Kyrian, Venthyr, Necrobards, and Night Fae. It also includes a soundtrack for Shadowlands, so you can listen to the music of the afterlife.
Shadowlands, блять, он за 2 года заебет.
You'll be experiencing more of Shadowlands very soon. In fact, I'm pleased to announce World of Warcraft Shadowlands will officially enter beta next week. Beta participants will be able to experience the max level challenges in the Maw, the most dangerous place in all the Shadowlands, and one of the most rewarding too.
А вот бета, да.
To tell you more about our upcoming beta, I'd like to introduce our game director, Ian Hazakostas. On behalf of the WoW team, thank you again for your support.
Давайте, что нам Иван расскажет.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, John. Thank you for sharing your morning or evening with us, as the case may be. Super hyped to be able to share that collector's edition with everybody. One of my favorite features that John didn't get a chance to mention is that those pins actually have a self-destruct mechanism built in. So pick one carefully. If you want, the other 3 might vanish instantly. Let's talk a little bit about what is coming up in the beta ahead and Shadowlands in general. So first, I want to look back at the 3 months since we launched our alpha. Just about 3 months ago to this day, the alpha began. and we welcomed thousands of folks from around the world in to begin to share this great project that we've been working on really for the last couple of years. We've at this point journeyed through the 4 main zones of the Shadowlands, seen a glimpse of the Maw, experienced Covenant active abilities, and of course,
3 месяца для альфа это прям достаточно.
Our valiant alpha testers have completed over 800,000 quests
900
in
тысяч
that
квестов.
time.
Отлично.
Over 2,000 unique characters have finished Exile's Reach, our new player experience on the Alliance side.
2000 людей достигли превознесения, ну, хорошо.
Over 62,000 Torghast runs have been undertaken on our alpha servers. And alas, just over 11,000 of those ended in the clutches of the Terror Group. So be more careful next time. And crucially, over 64,000 in-game bug reports using our in-game reporting tool have been entered by alpha testers. Our QA team internally is busy poring over those. So far, I think they've cataloged something like 1,600 unique bugs that are being tracked in our system as a result of those reports.
Не, ну 64 тысячи уникальных багов это что-то прям.
By the time Shadowlands comes out, and we know that's just the tip of the iceberg. This is really, an invaluable tool, and every bit of your feedback matters. Speaking of feedback, it's not just the feedback within the tool, but also broader discussions on the forums and the community at large, and places like Reddit and Twitter, and the videos folks are making to share reactions, thoughts, and ways in which the experience that they're seeing could be improved. Something that our entire development team is eagerly attentive to. Now, our alpha experience and our alpha process really is a true alpha. For the past weeks, what you have been seeing is the active organic evolution of the game. Sometimes a build might have a change that literally is 5 days old. It's an experiment. It's a solution to some problem that was discovered, and
короче, раз 5 дней они меняли билд, потому что фиксили очень дохрена багов. Прям очень дохрена.
And it's a collaborative process between us and the community. And so, we've seen some changes to, for example, the pacing of Torghast and the removal of any sort of the torment system or time limits there. An area in Torghast we've heard a lot about also is, frankly, just how much fun people are having and the grim prospect of only being able to do it a certain number of times a week. I think we'd previously discussed that the Endless Corridors section of Torghast would be completely ungated, but I'm actually happy to announce that at this point, we are shifting to completely remove all keying from all the wings of Torghast. And so you can run it to your heart's content. If you want to go in, have fun,
пока ничего по делу, да, Torghast, заебись, круто, мы помогали фиксить баги.
We don't want to get in your way. We'll figure out a solution to the reward system there to make sure that you're not required or overly encouraged to endlessly grind it all week. But if you want to do it just because it's fun, we don't want to stop you. And of course, our class team is listening, and our combat team are listening to feedback there, and there are regular updates coming out and many more to follow. Our level design team, which sculpts the hills and the mountains and the roads that shape our zones, are actually eagerly devouring every bit of footage of people playing the alpha they can get their hands on. Often watching people who get turned around or confused or stuck trying to climb up a hill that looks like it should be climbable, and they're instantly going in, fixing those areas for the next build the next week. Every part of the game, our character artists who are looking at reactions to character customizations that are going out and hearing what people are most excited about, what they wish they could have, what options are missing.
Не, вот это все, что он говорит, что что люди ожидают чего-то, что они все сделают. Нет. В БФА было вот то же самое, в Легионе было то же самое. Люди ожидают реворка Shadow престолов, что-то как-то я не наблюдаю его.
Truly. So now, turning the corner, looking ahead to what the next weeks will hold as we move into our beta. So what does beta mean? For us, beta certainly means the game's not done, but the framework is there and is complete. There shouldn't be missing pieces, giant missing ones where there's an entire feature that's not there, or there's a zone that's not yet playable. While those things are true, we continue to call it alpha. But we're getting very close to pretty much the framework all being intact, being present. And so the level cap is going to go up to 60 when beta begins. It's also going to mean a first look at our endgame systems, at truly joining a covenant, at visiting your covenant sanctum, playing through that content,
Ну нет,
playing through
first
our
look at
outdoor world
endgame
max
это
level
прям...
content, our max level dungeons,
Ну хотя не
our
знаю, может
raids,
быть это и будет
experience with
что-то
soul
отдельное.
lines, and more.
Но на самом деле, мне
There's a
кажется,
lot of work still to be done to flesh out the details of these
это не будет
systems,
endgame в полноценном
but everything
понимании.
should be there, and
Да,
that's
там пара
why we are now
истов, может
calling it
какой-то
beta.
там
Now, perhaps
рейд
most
первый.
importantly for many of you, this also means a big new invite wave going out. That's going to start next week, and
Но
a
инвайт я
process
все
that
равно
will
не получу,
continue as we
несмотря на то,
also
что
want to, you know,
хрен сколько
maintain a
лет
lot of
играю, я как бы
concurrency
инвайт
on
на
our
бету
test
никогда не
servers, so we
получаю.
can get feedback on what zones feel like when there are dozens or hundreds of people in there competing over spawns, trying to do quests
Это много,
together.
как бы да,
So,
много инвайтов.
make sure to go to
Посмотрим.
our Battle.net account options, check
Хотя
your
в бету я
settings
бы с
there, make
радостью
sure that
поиграл.
you're opted in to Warcraft beta, if that interests you, and be patient, don't get frustrated if you don't get an email from
Люди в
us right
чате
away.
просто
We will continue to do
to buy
invites over
beta
the
key.
course of the summer.
Конечно.
And as John said, of course, this kicks off next week.
Ну, хорошо, это
So I want to take
слышно.
the rest of our time together
Про
just to
следующую
talk a
неделю я
bit
имею в виду.
about some of the things that you're going to be seeing as part of that endgame loop. Some of this is stuff that we haven't really had a chance to say much about since BlizzCon, and so I wanted to just share some more details and how the designs have evolved since we last discussed them. So first off, covenants. As we have said at great length, covenants are the centerpiece of Shadowlands, the Shadowlands expansion. This is where all roads lead. As you journey through the zones of the Shadowlands, you will play through all 4 zones. You will meet the 4 controlling powers of the Shadowlands. You get a chance to borrow their powers, get a sense of their personalities, their ethos, their aesthetic. And at the end of that road, when you hit level 60, what awaits you is this fateful choice as you return to Oribos, now fully understanding the stakes that are affecting the
Ну, то есть
Shadowlands
можно
and
будет
really
выбирать,
all
в
of
принципе,
existence,
на момент
and choose whether you want
прохождения
to cast
сюжетной линии,
Claude
подкачки.
with the Kyrian of
Просто выбирать, что
Bastion,
нравится,
the
а уже
Venthyr of
потом сделать
Revendreth, the
окончательный выбор.
Necrolords of
Хорошо.
Maldraxxus,
Я боялся,
or the
что этого
Night
не
Fae of
сделают.
Vardenweald. And as you make that choice, what that means is unlocking an entire sphere of gameplay and content for you. What we've seen so far in Alpha really is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just these couple of active abilities that you get to experience while leveling up. We also made sure to make those testable as early as possible just to get mechanical feedback on them and what felt good and what didn't. But now it's time to see the rest of the iceberg and everything the covenants entail. So on the system side, first off, one of the most prominent immediate things you're going to experience is soulbinds. So soulbinding is this ancient ritual in the Shadowlands whereby 2 souls can link themselves to each other, sharing a portion of their identity, their memories, and also of their powers. And so as you join a covenant, you'll be able to form soulbinds with certain key powerful souls that are affiliated with that covenant. These will be characters with vibrant, memorable personalities, many of which you will have met while leveling up and while questing through those zones.
Они вынесли, короче, получается, таланты в пэтов,
ну, типа пэтов. Examples, because that's the first covenant that we're going to have playable in an upcoming build. Nadia, the Mistblade, she was a renowned duelist in life, and that persona really shapes all of her abilities and the ways in which she's going to enhance your combat ability, grant you utility, and more. And so what each soulbind represents, as you can see in this slide, it's effectively a talent tree that you can, you will traverse down as you gain power in your covenant. You can pick which path you want to go down, customize your gameplay, customize abilities to suit your gameplay. And you may be noticing the empty slots in this tree. That's where you're going to put these items that are called conduits. Now, for those who played Legion, you may remember relics.
Даже чел пишет, что это не дерево талантов.
These are fairly similar.
Выбор из 3.
Conduits are going to be items that you can get from
доходит.
dungeon bosses, raids, PvP, a wide array of max level item sources. And unlike the soulbind traits, which are universal, where an arms warrior and a holy priest have the same traits if you have Nadia as your soulbind.
Тем более, если он говорит, что Армс и Холикс могут иметь одинаковые соулбинды, зачем вообще они? Если будет Армс бегать в одном и Холик будет бегать в одном, нахрен?
Some are going to focus on increasing your throughput, like your damage and healing. Others are more about survival. Others are about utility. Again, this is letting you mix and match to choose the gameplay.
Какие new mix and match? О чем? О чем он говорит? Они вообще в свою игру играют?
In World of Warcraft. Now, unlike Covenants, which themselves are a very weighty choice and not something that's lightly switched, Soulbinds have a great deal of flexibility, both in terms of respecking them at a
Какие
nominal cost, nothing
flexibility?
escalating
Вы
like how
вшили,
Azerite
блядь.
was in Battle for Azeroth, or just
Отвечаю.
switching from one
Амат
soulbind to
хил,
another, the
АУЕ,
same way you might
100 урон.
respec or switch
Блядь,
talents.
везде такая хуйня
Truly,
будет.
the idea
Вот
here is
прям
to have a
везде.
range of options, and you pick what suits you for what you're looking to do right now. Now, as you join the Sanctum, as you join the Covenant, a key way in which you're going to progress within your Covenant is by gaining Renown. Renown will deepen your connection with your Soulbinds. It will also unlock a wide range of features, rewards, followers, which we'll talk about in a little bit, cosmetics, and more. You'll earn Renown by, on a weekly basis, going out into the world, gathering anima, this precious lifeblood of the Shadowlands that
Ну, то есть за репутацию будут открываться вот эти спутники, которые дают вот эти soulbind таланты, то есть... Ну, опять возвращаемся к дрочу репутации. Ладно, допустим.
But that were instead cast into the maw because of how the machine of death is broken. This isn't an open-ended grind. This isn't like artifact power. This is a more, metered progression as you're working on behalf of your Covenant. And we're making sure
говорит,
that really from the start, the moment Shadowlands launches,
launches,
we have robust catch-up systems built in, whether you are an alt, someone who's switched Covenants, or someone who's just, late coming to the game. We don't want you to feel like you're behind or like you have some, catch-up calendar. But Renown is a primary way in which you will progress through the systems of the Covenant, including Soulbinds, but also some stuff I'm about to talk about next. So each Covenant has a Sanctum. Now these are, there's loose inspiration is drawn here from things like the garrisons back in Warlords or the class halls in Legion. Each Sanctum is the base of operations for that Covenant. And this is a place where you're actually likely to begin and end most of your gameplay sessions once you're at max level. Each Sanctum has a number of features to it that you can upgrade, but really
Пиздец, они даже не старались, они просто вот Легион 2.0. Спутники, soulbinды за репутацию, квестовый прогресс был в Легионе. Sanctum, артефакт, Гринтази, блядь, этого Азерита с буфа, Гринт, что в Легионе гриндили, я уже не помню, силу артефакта. Нет?
Everything is withering, starved of anima, and chaos really is consuming the Shadowlands. And you as a champion of your
Нет, это хорошие системы были в Легионе. Почему они хорошо сошли? Это были первые. Ты смотришь и ты думаешь, блядь, кайфово. Это что-то новое, интересное. Когда, блядь, меня третье дополнение этим кормят. Пятый год, блядь, одного и того же. Ну зачем?
One of them that every Covenant has is a transportation network. So within your own zone, if you're a member of the Night Fae within Ardenweald, there's a complex route network that lets you quickly access different parts of the zone. The Venthyr and Revendreth have a network of blood mirrors that can basically teleport you around. We want to make it so that, particularly if this is something you're investing in, you feel most at home, most comfortable in your zone if you're a member of the because that is where your powers are greatest, that is where your Covenant's influence is greatest.
Персонажем поиграть.
Another structure that every Covenant has is something called an anima conductor. So as I've mentioned, part of the plight of the Shadowlands is this lack of anima. Groves in Ardenweald that were once flourishing with magical energy are now desiccated, withered. Temples in Bastion lie dormant, deactivated. The constructs that once guarded them are inactive. Anima is the answer to all of those things. And so what you're doing as you bring it back to your Covenant is pooling in the reservoir, but you also have the ability to direct the flow of anima outward toward your zone to regrow, reactivate these dormant parts of the space. Now, what that means in gameplay terms is you can send a stream of anima over to an area which will enable quests, treasures, events, outdoor world content in that area for you based on your choice on a given day. As you upgrade your anima conductor, you'll have more options that you can unlock. And as you engage in the system in general, you can progress towards permanently enabling and reactivating these spaces, both so that you have the content available for you, but also so that you see the world change around you to an extent. This grove that once was withered and dead in Ardenweald will once again be blooming and flourishing with anima energy thanks to your efforts. And the events that were there will now always be up for you as a result of what you've done. The third system that every Covenant has is a scouting map. This is
Вот
an
так.
extension of the mission system that we first introduced back in Warlords of Draenor, and we've kind of tinkered with that formula a couple times since then. And I think the basic loop there, we've moved away from its central importance that it had in Warlords, and I think we're not looking to go back to, you know, the Warlords era version of this being a source or the best raid gear in the game or what have you. But it's an outlet for some storytelling, some offline progression. So you have something waiting for you where you log in, and something that you can maybe check in
Оффлайн,
on in
блять,
shorter sessions.
прогрессион, серьезно.
But we want to add more depth
Это
to
та же
the system
хуйня,
than what we've
что
had
в
in the last couple of
гарнизоне, что в
extensions.
этом, господи,
What we
блядь.
have
Что в
previously really
гарнизоне
is
в
just it
Дреноре
boils
мы
down
эти
to a coin
квесты
flip. You're doing
делали.
a simple matching game,
Что в
matching
Легионе
counters to
соратников ты
threats,
отправляешь, что
and
буфаты
maybe you get up to
соратников
170% success
солдатами
chance to get your
отправляешь.
bonus
Здесь, блядь, так...
reward,
Ну
and
зачем?
hope you get lucky. And really, if you didn't, there's nothing you could have done better, nothing you did right or wrong, and you either succeed or fail. We want to re-envision the foundations of that system to be something that is a better analog to the fantasy that we're trying to convey. The way a mission works in Warcraft isn't a coin flip. The way combat works in Warcraft, when you're sending these champions out into a dangerous area, isn't success or failure. It's nuanced gameplay with tanks and healers and melee DPS and range DPS as a party of combatants.
Ну нахуй мне это, я, блядь, это в БФА не делаю, когда нужно просто подойти кликнуть. А зачем?
It still will happen while you're offline, but there's a turn-based system here where you will level up your soulbinds, recruit additional champions and adventurers to bolster their ranks, and send troops custom-based on your covenant out to complete these missions and obviously bring back some of that sweet loot that you're looking for. There's a lot of depth to the system. We're going to have a early peek at it in our next couple of builds, and we'll continue to add more breadth to it over the course of the beta. Really curious to hear initial hands-on impressions, and as always with all of our features, we want to jump in and react quickly to whatever feedback we hear. As before, adventurers will also be supported in our mobile companion app, which will be updated for Shadowlands at the time of the expansion's release.
Если хочешь прогрессом, хочешь раскачать Soulblind,
those three
занимайся
features
этой
that I just
херней.
talked
Это
about are
просто...
something that every covenant
Чем?
has access to. They are universal. But each covenant also has a fourth structure that is unique depending on which covenant you've joined. Now, I've been using Leventhyr a lot for as these examples, so let's start with them. If you are a Venthyr in Revendreth, you also have this fourth section of your sanctum known as the Ember Court. Now, what the Ember Court is, it's a hosting venue for pretty rad parties. The culture of Revendreth, certainly before things really went off the rails in the events leading up to this expansion, was one of elegance, aristocracy, a lot of those tropes surrounding nobility. And part of what that means is showing off your influence by hosting grand galas for the most important individuals, not just from Revendreth, but from across the Shadowlands as a whole. And the Venthyr were notorious for this. Now, your ally, as you join the Venthyr, Prince Renethal, is looking to reestablish himself, to reestablish a new order, and showing off his growing influence and stature in that area. And you're going to help him out as a loyal
Надо было
member
этого, кстати,
of his
ожидать,
covenant.
потому что
The way that's going to play out is
на Альфе, по-моему, БФА уже были скрины Барауса и
go out, seek out guests, invite them to the party. Not maybe literally arrange catering, but figure out the different services that are going to make those guests happy. Play through the party in real time, maybe fending off party crashers that are trying to disrupt festivities. At the end of the day, maximizing the happiness of all your guests. And ideally, if they're happy, on the way out, they'll give you a token of their gratitude in the form of
вернулись к провальным гарнизонам.
And to be clear, this is not gloom and doom, life or death, saving the Shadowlands stuff. This is just a fun side activity that has a remarkable amount of depth to it, but is there to allow us to flesh out the culture and the personality and the identities of these covenants of these areas. We're not going to defeat the jailer by throwing the most badass party in the Shadowlands, but that is part of what being a Venthyr is. Now, if on the other hand, you join the Kyrian in Bastion, their unique feature is called the Path of Ascension. Now, the Path of Ascension is driven by this unique soul mirror, whereby you can actually inhabit the consciousness of one of your soulbinds. So you can play, let's say, as the aspirant Pelagos with a unique set of abilities and go through a series of trials, gladiatorial combat against the most powerful souls of the Shadowlands that you will also go out in your adventures across the world and recruit and capture and bring back to fight within the Path of Ascension. This is a self-contained, combat-heavy system that has, a little bit of a boss rush feel to
То есть
it.
нам просто сейчас
For those
представят,
of you
что
who are
ДПС
very old
по-любому
school,
берут
if you remember the
кирийский
Chartoul
ковенант.
event way back in Burning
То есть
Crusade,
вот так
Blades Edge
должно работать,
Mountains,
да, по мнению
this
разработчиков?
is loosely inspired by that. It's the same kind of vibe, and this is available to members of the Kyrian. Now, if you joined the Necrolords of Maldraxxus, Necrolords are, and Maldraxxus is the source of the military might of the Shadowlands. This is a lot of the power that we saw manifested by the Scourge in the great floating necropolises like Naxxramas, and abominations like Patchwork and ghouls and geists, and the art of creating those creatures, the art of necromancy, is most closely affiliated with Maldraxxus. And so the structure you have as a member of the Necrolords is called the Abomination Factory. And this is a system whereby you can build fleshwork creatures, essentially, whether it's an abomination or a ghoul or a geist, to be the perfect housing for a soul that's in need of a physical form. Now, these souls have quirks and unique personalities and interests and abilities. So as you meet them, figure out what the right form for them is, and create a body for them to house, you can then adventure with them, unlocking various perks ranging from utility, extra gathering bonuses, to some combat perks in the outdoor world.
Очень плохая идея, потому что это очень тяжело забалансить. Что будет влиять сильнее, святилище, Soulbinding или обилка ковенанта?
Ardenweald contains in its innermost reaches a sacred grove known as the Queen's Conservatory. This is where powerful souls effectively germinate, rest, are infused with the surrounding energies of the forest, and are prepared for rebirth and return to the world of the living. That is the essential function, one of the essential properties of Ardenweald. Now, the form that takes for you as a player, this is effectively a soul garden.
Ну ладно, 15-16 можно пройти любым стапом, да, с любым ковенантом. Ну, допустим, 20-й ключ. Блять, там же все как под копирку будут. Просто вот один к одному. Они не сделают нормальный баланс. И осознанно большая часть населения, которая играет, они будут стремиться к просто more valuable, что называется, ковенанту. Просто проценты, что больше даст урона. Зачем ставить игроков, зачем давать им выбор, а потом его забирать? Тем фактом, что они дают выбор, они уже его забирают.
So we'll have a lot more to talk about with Sanctums. We'll have deep dive blogs on individual pieces of these over the course of the summer as beta progresses. But that's an overview of some of the new stuff that you're going to be seeing in Covenants as beta
Вообще все это как бы нужно смотреть.
Now, some other new
Реально прям вот
we're
по
going to
факту.
have coming up our last dungeon that we have not yet revealed, a max level dungeon called the Theater of Pain. Theater of Pain is a dungeon in the center of Maldraxxus, and this is really, it's an epic arena, and the dungeon takes place during an important event. There's this regularly recurring battle royale, effectively, where all of the war houses of Maldraxxus send their greatest champions to fight it out, and to prove who is the strongest, who is the most powerful of all. Because that's a lot of what Maldraxxus is about. It's might makes right is the prevailing ethos there, and demonstrations of power and military might and cunning. Now, this has, there are particularly complex layers to what's going on right now, given the strife that's gripping the Shadowlands, that make these particular games perhaps the most important and the weightiest in recent memory. And you find yourself as an adventurer, as a party of adventurers, plunged into this conflict. And the way that's going to play out is a very non-linear dungeon experience.
И учитывая, что это
as you
PvE-контент,
choose which of the different
это не
factions you're
PvP.
going to
Ладно бы они
engage
сделали
with
новый
first,
формат
as you traverse the
для
catacombs and the tunnels beneath the arena, ultimately
этих, для
culminating in a
БГшек.
final encounter where we'll see if you, or well, the five of you, can emerge victorious as the ultimate champions of the Theater of
И
Pain.
сделать там типа каждый сам за себя. Но
And
это,
as with
конечно, не балансная история, будет
all things
абсолютно. Но
Maldraxxus,
это было бы
prevailing core
прикольно, мне
here
кажется.
is super metal, so expect more of that as you enter this dungeon. Next up, we are going to be revisiting the outdoor space of the Maw. So this is really where it all began for us in the Shadowlands. We just saw a couple of weeks ago in Alpha those initial, that initial venture into the Maw, the domain of the Jailer, as we went in from Icecrown Citadel, not knowing what was going to await us on the other side. What we found was a horrific array of forces that we can't hope to overcome. We just barely escaped
Я
from the
думаю,
jailer's
все-таки
clutches
по факту
and made it
ничего
out
не
into
скажет
Orvos.
ни
We
и
could
он,
then
ни даже
explore the
если
rest of the
никто
Shadowlands. Well,
геймдизайнеру
now,
слово
as we hit level
передадут,
60, as we
вряд ли
hit
что-то
max
скажут
level,
про
with the
классы,
power
про
of the
нерфы, про
Covenant
бафы.
behind us,
Мне
it's going to be
кажется, нет, мы
time
этого
for
не
us to
увидим сегодня.
return to this place where it all began, to go into the Maw with the goal of investigating, exploring, trying to understand more of what the jailer is up to and how we might thwart those plans. So fortunately, early on in our visits into the Maw, we're going to encounter probably the one singular being in all of the Maw who doesn't actively want to kill us, at least as far as we can tell, this mysterious broker known as Venari. Venari is kind of huddled away in a small cave in the outer reaches of the Maw,
Обратил
and
внимание
you'll be
опять на
able to
чат.
work with her to investigate
Телек
and
взорвался
explore,
на предмет
gather
того, что
precious
не стоит
artifacts and
вводить
resources
PvE
from
элементов
throughout the
в
Maw
PvP.
that will
То есть не
maybe
нужно
make it a little
вводить
bit
вот
more of
эти
a hospitable
обилки
place for you,
Ковенанта,
give you more information, increase your
Sanctuary,
ability to
ну,
traverse the
Sanctum.
Maw, as
Эти
well
все
as
истории не нужно
improve your
вводить их в
effectiveness
PvP. В
in
принципе, я
Torghast.
думаю, он в
The
некоторой
Maw
степени прав.
is really
Но я думаю, не все
inspired by a lot
PvP-шеры
of
с ним
our
опять
more
будут согласны.
sandboxy endgame content in the past. Most recently, probably Mechagon from the Rise of Ashara patch that we had
Не,
in
мне
the middle
кажется,
of Battle for
PvP в
Azeroth.
начале
But, you know,
будет
those roots go all
нормальное.
the way back to places like
Не
Timeless
будет такой
Isle.
истории, как
This isn't a
сейчас с
place where you're
ваншотом на
going to
700
bring up
тысяч.
your map and see a bunch of world quests and
Ну, там,
clear direction.
или на 400
It's
с
more about
улички.
a loose
Или на
structure,
700 со звезд.
general broad objectives, and then lots and lots of discoverable gameplay. So we can't wait to have people jump in here, let us know what you think. And you know, one of the really fun challenges in creating this experience was trying to create gameplay that reflects the fantasy of the space. You are not welcome here. This is not a place full of flight paths and inns to set your Hearthstone and people who are welcoming you at every turn. Everything in the Maw rejects your very existence and presence there. You do not belong here. And everything you do is under the watchful eye of the jailer, where if you raise a bit too much of a ruckus, you are engaging in
Странная история про то, что не будет летать, вы там не сможете, очень сложная локация. Окей, Легион, Аргус проходили.
With your life and your hard-won earnings intact. So I'd like to share with you a quick video that's just a look at what the Maw is like in motion.
Давайте посмотрим. Реально Аргус. Просто Аргус 2.0, серьезно. Ну, композитор, как всегда, на высоте.
Super desolate place, but awe-inspiring in a terrible way. So those are some of the specifics that we've just covered. I also want to lay out a bit more of what lies ahead as beta unfolds.
Просто вот такие Desolate Place обычно скипаются просто.
Later this month, we'll be kicking off formal raid testing of our Castle Nathria raid. This is a 10-boss raid in the zone of Revendreth, where you're ultimately going to face off against the Venthyr Lord Denathrius, who is one of the major power players in the Shadowlands. It's just incredible gothic fantasy. Our encounter team and our dungeon art team had a blast making this. We can't wait to get people in there. As always, we'll have focused testing windows for normal, heroic, mythic, and raid finder difficulties. And as we get on in the beta, we'll be looking to specifically have some targeted invites for experienced raiders who can give us the feedback that we need to get the tuning right on difficulties like Mythic. Also later this month, we'll be kicking off Shadowlands Mythic Keystone Dungeons. We want to get these in your hands as quickly as possible. As soon as max level content is unlocked, we want to enable Mythic Keystones. We'll probably have a vendor that just sells Keystones directly just to facilitate testing. Early on, we just want to get initial feedback on how our dungeons are playing with the core Mythic Plus affixes, so we can hear quickly, where things like bolstering or necrotic or bursting are extra frustrating, and make sure that we're making any tweaks early on to make the experience that you have ultimately when Shadowlands comes out the best one possible. Later on in beta, we'll also be revealing for focus testing our first Shadowlands seasonal affix, as well as some potential other tweaks to the system.
Короче, блядь, аффиксы все будут точно те же самые, просто будет опять сезон аффиксов. Сколько можно? Поменять уже, введите новый аффикс. Просто берите тираников, артефактов. Зачем?
So for those of you
Неделю ты
who
не
are around the
можешь
Legion,
ходить неделю, а
and
он
really throughout
вообще
the history of
изёвый.
World of Warcraft,
Хотя
some of
это
the
оба
coolest loot
15
we've ever
ключи.
made has had that orange color, orange border. When you see a legendary item, it's usually something that's going to transform your gameplay and unlock an all-new level of power within you. And one of the big points of feedback that we got that was
Да-да,
frustrating
камбэк
in Legion
легендарок из
was centered around how these
Легиона.
items were obtained and the lack of control over obtaining them. There might be an item that was tremendously powerful.
Еще, кстати, на PvP это может сильно повлиять. Вот то же самое, что с порчей, что со всем остальным, это может очень сильно повлиять на PvP составляющую.
Shadowlands is really aiming from
Это
the
все про
outset
это и
to
раньше
address
говорили
those
просто.
concerns and to give you a ton of agency and control over how you seek out.
Нет, я не говорю, что это плохое дополнение. Оно максимально похоже на Легион, на предыдущее. Это хорошо. Легион был, по-моему, одним из самых популярных относительно. Просто у него был самый большой относительно к Личу ближе. Но на Личе был просто пик игроков большой. И на Легионе был тоже небольшой пичок, если я правильно понимаю. И правильно помню стату.
Incredible artifacts like Frostmourne or the now shattered helm of the Lich King. And by recovering essence from Torghast, as well as scraps of this ancient runic knowledge that you can bring back to the smith and awaken locked away memories, the runesmith will be able to make for you, to imbue an item with power that you get from a tailor, blacksmith, leatherworker, depending on your armor type. The runesmith can make a legendary of your choice for you. That way you can look at those amazing bracers or gloves or boots or whatever you're seeking and work towards it, earn it, and then begin your next project. A lot of these legendary powers are throwbacks to some fan favorites from across really the past dozen years. Everything from Legion legendaries to old set bonuses to powers that are brand new Torghast powers that you'll be able to use temporarily within Torghast, but sometimes permanently imbue a legendary item with.
Потому что как в Легионе нужно было сидеть, вот тебе нужен на шипе Сефус и там пояс, по-моему. Ну, я, по-моему, бегал, да, Сефус пояс. Или там плащ. Тебе нужны конкретные веги. Они, блядь, не падают до самого талого конца, блядь, пока ты не перестаешь играть, они не падают. И здесь вот точно такая же история может быть. Хоть это и крафт, не менее. Получить будет такие вещи тоже непросто. С другой стороны, это и есть легендарные вещи. Не должно быть получить просто. Но, надеюсь, с рандома такого не будет дикого.
Earn cosmetic rewards for your covenant, unlock an additional soulbind, and really experience the full extent
То есть компании квестовых ковенантов на бете не будет. Ладно, это не самое плохое, пожалуй, просто... Фокус PvP тестинг. Да ладно, блядь. Столько всего рассказал, что рынет PvP. Ну, смысл вообще его тестить. Просто дайте его людям.
And get early and rapid iteration on arena, battlegrounds, just general PvP combat testing at max level, so that we can make sure that we're both reining in any outliers, but also just dialing in the overall pacing of combat. No one likes those matches that go into
если PvP-тестирование будет такое же, как 8.3 с порчами, это будет вообще просто, бля, конечное. Это вот прям конечное будет. Вы проходите неделю после патча, весь YouTube завален видосиками про ваншоты по 800 тысяч, блядь, со звезд. Потом звезды занерфили, апнули сумеречка, блядь, по 400 хуяривает у танка. И почал ковырять по 1000, вам пол хп. Или полный столб хп. Как? Ну, это нормально вообще.
And enabling character copies, which will set up end-to-end testing as you can come in with your characters from Battle for Azeroth, level up through Shadowlands, replace your gear organically, earn the rewards you're going to earn, and start giving us feedback.
Попозже откроется тест, можно будет своего персонажа скопировать, пробовать поиграть до эндгейма Shadowlands. Посмотрим. Ну, это то попозже, то есть сейчас с нуля, ну, не с нуля, скорее всего, с 50, наверное.
But there's no real substitute for having the whole thing stood up end to end and having people go through it. And rather than having those regrets that we sometimes have a month or two into an expansion where we realize that we missed the mark on some aspect of that progression, we want to really do as much of it as possible during beta so that when the game comes out for real, it's everything that it needs to be. And that's really the theme of the month ahead. We have some work to do to finish fleshing out the structures that we just
Ну,
described.
понятно.
But most
Black
of the rest
Prism
is going to be polish, responding to feedback, iteration, and finally, tuning. I'm going to talk a little bit about tuning because I know it's a hot topic. Balance
Если
is
это все, что они
always,
расскажут, это
the most controversial, one of the most
это не
central
провально,
topics
да, они
in community
рассказали в своих
discussion.
дальнейших
It
планах.
has been
Такие
forever
презентации
in
это
WoW.
круто на самом деле, но
Tuning is the last
я,
thing that we
наверное,
do.
мой рейтинг ожиданий был
In the
немножко
early
выше,
parts of
чем
alpha and
сказали,
beta,
поэтому.
we're basically just looking for extreme outliers where things might be so far out of whack that they disrupt the feedback that we get. If something is so overpowered that it trivializes content, well, we have to fix that. Otherwise, all of our
Нет, все смотрят,
feedback on, let's say,
никто не ревнует.
Torghast is going to be tainted because someone's walking through one-shotting things.
Надеюсь,
Or if
в
something is so weak that
пункт
it doesn't
тюнинг
matter if
входит
it's theoretically fun, it feels terrible to
удаление
use,
void
or no
формы
one
у
wants
ШП.
to use it, we don't get feedback on it, we need to fix that. But beyond that, we really want to focus first on shoring up the conceptual foundations of what we're building. We want to make sure that the abilities, the systems, and everything else feel fun, that they sound exciting as ideas. And then once we've gotten to a place where we're confident in those
Будем работать
foundations,
над концепцией,
the
чтобы всем было
natural next
весело и
step
заебись.
is to dial them in so that they're
Чел, ну
well-tuned.
если вы
And
работаете
so
над
if you're looking
концепцией
at the
так
way
же, как вы
things are in
поработали над
alpha
ней в
now
БФА,
and saying to yourself
до
that, I don't
там
know,
8.1
hypothetically
ты не
speaking,
понимаешь, что
the
происходит.
best choices are
8.2
40% better than
сюжет
what you
просто
might pick if
обрывается.
you were
8.3
just
ты не
trying to,
понимаешь, что
go after
происходит.
what looks fun.
Херовая
That's
концепция.
because there's a key part of the
Как
stuff
бы там ни было
process
так
here that
же.
just hasn't happened yet. Now, I don't want to say, just wait until after beta, it's only beta. We sometimes get that wrong too, but there's a deliberate process that we approach for a reason. Because we want to make sure that we're using the majority of our bandwidth to fix bad ideas rather than potentially trying to polish something that ultimately is fundamentally flawed. So for example, we've heard a lot of feedback recently on the Ardenwield's Paladin ability, the Covenant ability, Blessing of Seasons.
Ну, понятно,
And
что
tried a couple different versions of that.
Визуалочки там,
Ultimately,
конечно.
we're at this point going to go back to the drawing board and fundamentally redesign the way that ability works because it has some fundamental flaws that make it very challenging to balance, but also not even necessarily as fun as we'd hoped it would be. And so having put a lot of effort into tuning that would have potentially masked an underlying problem, or at best just been a distraction from the more important work that we could have been doing in the meantime. And so as the sort of original creative work of Shadowlands comes to a close, as we move out of that phase, the phase that lies ahead of us is going to have lots and lots of tuning and polish that will continue all the way up to the launch of the expansion later this year. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And I also want to thank you all for your patience. We'd originally planned on doing this stream a month ago. And back then we would have had somewhat different material. But we postponed it then to avoid distracting from a more important conversation.
И ничего бы не поменялось.
But of course, that conversation is still happening. Injustice doesn't cease just because we look away. Black Lives Mattered a month ago. Black Lives Matter today. And if that phrase is difficult to hear, know that I and others who speak those words aren't saying that your life has any less worth. We're only calling attention to the ways in which our societies seem to need a reminder that Black Lives Matter. Now, as John said earlier, these are extraordinarily difficult times. We all have our own struggles, and we can often help by simply listening with open hearts. So be kind to one another, stay safe, and we'll see you in Azeroth and in the Shadowlands beyond. Thank you.
Ну, неоднозначный стрим получился, на самом деле, у них. Не сказать, что много чего-то хорошего показали, рассказали. Лишь показали, что мы возвращаемся к системе дренорских гарнизонов, к системе легионовских легендарок, к системе легионовского флота, к системе гринда, силы артефакта опять. То же самое. Они просто поменяли обложку легиона и в целом его обертку, назовем это так. И вот получайте то, что вы получаете. Да, это, пожалуй, достаточно странная была презентация. Нет, она была нужна, просто, да, я ждал от нее несколько большего, больше конкретики. Наверное, больше цифр я ожидал, потому что здесь не было совершенно ничего сказано ни за какой баланс, ни какие-то примеры. Да, 64 тысячи уникальных багов. В чем они выражались, непонятно. Еще, кстати, интересно было бы посмотреть статистику по поводу вот такого вот количества багов перед другими дополнениями в альфах других дополнений. Хотя это у них стримлагать, не у меня. Но такую статистику вряд ли найдем. Да. Ну, что ж. Вот мы и посмотрели. Понятно, не скажем, чтобы очень много. Но новинки есть. Пусть они спорные. Возврат к Легиону. Но, тем не менее, мы хотя бы знаем, чего ждать. И знаем, что уже осенью выходит Shadowlands. Скорее всего, 29 ноября. Конечно же. И что скоро, через неделю, будет бета. Будем ждать ключей. А пока всем до скорых встреч.